Thank you for being there today.
So you have to sit down so that I'm first to show in the camera.
Not just for the conference, but for this all important panel. I call it all important because not because Prof. Ogen is here, because some of the issues that we are going to talk about started a long time ago. I remember 1985, not that I was part of the meeting, but Professor Abiy was the president of the Historical Society in 1985, and in his presidential address, he said he and his colleagues were being accused of finishing everything for history. And he admitted that no, we did not. All we did was to scratch it on the surface. And that the job of the current historians is to go down and dig out to reach all. And that's what makes this very, very important panel, germane to what we are all doing as historians. Because it talks about revisiting the past, talk about in the search that we call research. We look at it again and again and begin to challenge canonical knowledge and all stuff like that. That's the kind of thing we want to do. And contrary to what we have in our program, we will start in a rather different way, and we are going to make this a family affair. Family affair in the sense that, yeah, because this panel focused primarily on Prof. Ogen's inaugural that brought to the fore again that question of continuity, discontinuity, revisiting the past. So we are going to start with Professor Dr. Mayowade's paper that is going to look at a kind of review of what Professor Ogen dished out at that inaugural address. Then we give, I don't want to use a horse now. Professor Ogen is not a horse, a human being. So we will hear from the human's mouth. Yeah, the human's mouth. We are going to hear from the human's mouth. Given the fact that this is a very small, compact case, we will continue to alternate down, get his insight, then one presentation, get his insight, and whatever any other persons have in mind, tell us. So, without wasting any more time, I want to call on Dr.
Okay, thank you very much, the chairman. Thank you for setting the tone of this discussion. My name is Anola and I'm going to be doing a review of what Professor Olukoya Ogen has done in his inaugural lecture. His inaugural lecture titled Reconstructing a Silenced Past. Issues, echoes of revisionism and anti-hegemonic. So I've titled my work as a review to the echoes of revisionism and anti-hegemonic history. For most of African history, the past has mostly been forged in the collective consciousness and shared memories of its people. So, intellectual productions and cultural landmarks have often been statist and canonical in constructing the past. So it follows the question as to who narrates whatever history that we study or that we read today. Is it from the angle of the state or the particular history that has been analyzed? So the monolith narratives and attempted homogenization, briefly worsened by colonial and post-colonial complexity, have further epics our true understanding of the obscure past. However, emerging scholarship has continued to offer new perspective that rupture the very foundation of historical conservatism and troubles the calm waters of settled history. Hence, in its over 70 pages, first inaugural lecture and 21st for Osun State University, delivered September 5, 2024 in Shobo. It was titled Reconstructing a Silent Past, Echoes of Revisionism and Counter-Hegemonic History. Olukoya Ogen explores the vicissitudes of the long and hegemonic traditions of Yoruba history that tilted towards the Oyo effect hegemonic corridors. He emphasized the linguistic connections, cultural affinities, and ethnographic resonances that define the Yoruba movement. Ogen contends that contemporary Yoruba history has been patently tilted in favor of the central and western parts only, considered on page 6. He argues that the eastern part, which represents almost half of the entire Yoruba land, has been silenced or neglected. Then there is a need to fill this lacuna. This, he says, necessitates a review of some Yoruba canonical and hegemonic. So, how does he attend the imbalance? So, he offers an alternative. He offers alternatives in the production of non-statist counter-hegemonic history that will recover suppressed and historically marginalized voices. Ogen therefore questions the absolute authority of archival sources in reconstructing the African past. The lecturer emphasizes the credible evidence from sister disciplines such as ethnography, empirical comparative dialectology, lexicology, statistics, notochronology, totemism, praise poetry, place names, etc., which could snowball into historical theorization and comparison. Ogen notes that this methodology has been cynically questioned by a section of Yoruba intelligentsia and historical experts who find it sacrilegious to revisit historical issues that have been censored. Here, I quote that Ogen has done what Martin Luther King did during the reign of the papacy, which could have been regarded as heresy. Ogen argues empirically and theoretically that all history is revisionist history. He claims that revisionism is a byproduct of deep historical thinking and profound thought process, and describes revisionist historians as a shining light and beacon of knowledge and creativity. Discussing theoretical and philosophical issues in revisionism and hegemonic history, Ogen contends that Herodotus, Thucydides all started revisionist history, giving robust arguments and critical thinking, rational analysis about writing the past. He said they distinguished between myths and writing history, and even challenged the prevailing canons of their time. Thucydides, for instance, placed emphasis on precision, chronology, eyewitness account, and avoided romanticism and sensationalism. As a form of trace the modern revisionist history, Ogen credits Antonio Gramsci for modern revisionist history. So he defines hegemony as a process in which a dominant group exercises moral and intellectual leadership over its subordinated group. The subordinated group accepts the worldview of dominant group as their own, thereby relegating their own worldview and building cultural, mythical, and spiritual solidarity that results in historical bloc or economic consensus. This might lead to resistance or revolts as historical hegemony is evolutionary, while revisionist history is revolutionary. Hegemonic conservations, they believe that reforms must be reinforced, and it must reinforce the status quo rather than overthrow it. That the hegemonic historians believe that whatever reforms that take place in historical scholarship should evolve from the within rather than for it to rupture the existing epistemology. So Ogen describes silencing our cultural diversity to defend the status quo as gravely anachronistic and lowly descent into intellectual barbarism. He asserts that given the effluxion of time, new evidence and methods for examining old evidence emerge to foreground revisionism. So we can aptly substantiate B.H. Carr, given his definition of history as a continuous process of interaction between the historian and his past, and ending down between the present and the past. This follows that what Ogen is doing is in a way of believing that there is an unending between the present and the past. So the place of ethnicity and colonization of the Yoruba was on pages 13 to 14 of the lecture. Ogen takes the courage to scrutinize the canonization of time-tested arguments that are widely accepted and whose authenticity cannot be graded. He offers counter-hegemonic narratives to hegemonic canon formations in the Yoruba historiography. Indeed, Ogen accepts that it was a delicate venture given the attendant harassment from the conservative historical element. Arguing that there are no settled issues in history, Ogen decries the weaponization of the past for social, political, and economic gains. He therefore encourages scholars to be ready for intellectual battle, promising that revisionist ideologies have garnered global applause. The lecture laments how hegemonic canonization has long silenced a section of Yoruba and especially the southeastern part. So according to Ogen, some parts have been treated as a historical backward as Yoruba historiography. Then our appetite is whetted on page 25 to 26, when Ogen hints at genetic history to trace the marine lineage in Brazil. This, he says, links to the historically neglected coastal parts of the southeastern Yoruba. He suggests the deployment of reconstructive tools such as praise songs, poetries, cognomen, taboos, totems, lineage occupations to mention a few. Here one wonders if Ogen considered what if those enslaved to Brazil were the lowest class of the marine society, the southeastern Yoruba. How then can one deploy praise song and lyrics? These are questions that are yet unanswered. The right answer will be found in that no class in Yoruba society of the slave era was culturally detached. So from page 27 to 28, Ogen asserts that the Yoruba Ikale ethnic consciousness is not yet settled in history. He emphasized that Yoruba ethnic consciousness dates back to the pre-Oduduwa era in Nigeria, where they were culturally conscious of themselves as one ethnic group, united by common language in Kedu language, a common Ifa religion, uniformity in socio-political, cultural, economic organizations, which also bind them. He alludes to the German ethnic consciousness that predates 1871 reunification, when they were all badly united for peace. They refer to themselves loosely as the Bavarians, Libyans, or Prussians. Ogen submits that historically and culturally, the Ikale are incontrovertibly Yoruba. So, when we engage in engaging the popular canons of Yoruba historiography, that's the effect you are source. So it clarifies that beneath conquest, cultural imposition, and intermingling influence the disparity in the issue of Ikale royals and the Ikale people at large. On this important aspect, Ogen reiterates his conviction, stating that every Yoruba group, either historically privileged or marginalized, has the fundamental right to investigate and project its own origin. It can also project patterns of migration, intergroup relations, and cultural peculiarities into the mainstream of Yoruba without being silenced. This insights on page 38 in the silencing of some indigenous groups, especially the Igbo, that reigned in the pre-Oduduwa era, but are now being silenced by the new conquering political elites of the Oduduwa group, which has employed the new historical tool, legitimizing its own stranglehold of power and establishing its hegemony on the displaced group. With particular emphasis on cultural artifacts, rituals, panegyrics, ethnography, surveys, totems, and dialectology, Ogen affirms that the original inhabitants of Ife in the pre-Oduduwa era were the Igbo group, as Ife was known then as Igbo for the dialect Ugbo. While the ancient Ife market was known as Oja or Ojahu or Ugbo Akira. Testing the veracity of myths to historical facts, Ogen claims that Ife dialect is closer to Ugbo Ilaje dialect than any other Yoruba dialect, in spite of the distance of Ugbo to Ile-Ife. He submits that in terms of phonological consistency, regularity in lexicology and semantics, Ugbo Ulaje has 85% consonant correspondence with Ife dialect. This calls for challenge among historians to conduct the dialectology of the Ife groups. Quoting Professor Victor Ego 2020, Ogen notes that the reenactment of the conflict between the Obatala and Oduduwa groups was reflected in the Olodo festival in Ile-Ife up till today. On pages 4 to 41, it substantiates the claim of Akinjobi that the Ugbo people are the real incredible original Yoruba people, going by dialects and historical analysis. It states that Oduduwa groups became acculturated into the Igbo indigenous culture, while a large number of the Ugbo people stayed back in Ife and did not follow the Olugbo often or Ogone often to him. Here, it is clear that the revision does not alter the established historical fact that traces original Yoruba people to live. However, there is a need to explore the Obalufon-linked dynasty to Ile-Ife to the Kemi tradition. Then on the Ugbo-Benin connection, Ogen emphasizes that it is settled in history that Benin's monarchy is Ife-derived, even when the Benin recognizes the Ugbo and not Ife. So long as the Ife link is settled, Benin's monarchy is Ife-derived. Here, it remains a discussion in continent why Ogen himself decides to suppress the Benin Ekaladan directives. One may seek to understand what socio-cultural or political dynamics led to why a hitherto independent entity would submit own sovereignty to another without fight. So we can see some cultural similarity between the Benin and Ife in terms of their sculptural artifacts. So this one on the left side is for the Benin, right? This is from the Ife. So the second one, this is from Ife, and this is from Benin. So those similarities are so striking that we can begin to trace history from the cultural perspective. So what is equally important was that the incursion of Oduduwa reign and canonization became the focal point of ethnic nationalism in Yoruba land. In spite of his profound insights, Ogen does not explore where the Oduduwa group came from and what instinct identity they carried before they were fused into the vortex of Igbo decayed culture. This looks like that of Hausa Fulani, where a lot still be interrogated in Bayakida historical canonization. So in conclusion, indeed, Professor Ogen had noble and path-breaking ideologies was that our reliance on archival materials is capable of promoting journalized historical reconstruction of African past. It calls colonization of African historiography and a departure from Eurocentric views of African past. It questions how Northern donors establishes research agenda and methodologies for the history of Africa. Revisionist history deliberately cultivates intergenerational, interinstitutional, and cultural nexus to maintain high altitude standards. Ogen says it is interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and complementary, linking humanities, social sciences, and natural sciences. With this powerful and intrusive intervention, permit me to use the word intrusive, Olukoya Ogen has made a bold advocacy for revisionism as a veritable tool of historical reconstruction and the writing of history. Also, that hegemonic historical writing has successfully challenged the existing epistemology and conventional knowledge. Ogen has empirically and theoretically exhumed the silent past of the historically marginalized people whose past was concealed in the rubbles of historical hegemony, and by so doing, opening a new vista of historical scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hey. Thank you so very much. You did a very good job. If you have not read that, if you are not at the number, and if not read the printed copy of it, sorry, but we need to do something decisively about that. So thank you very much also. Now we have the next 10 minutes dedicated to Professor Ogen to respond to a number of questions that some presenter will come shortly. I want Professor Ogen to react to some of these important questions. And I'll be calling for a second.
Answer all the questions.
What's the questions?
All the questions. He answered.
He played Ojoro. So we want to hear your voice. Whether you answered them correctly, according to you, we want to know.
So, distinguished colleagues.
Sir, if you can sit down, so that you show the camera.
Sit down.
Yes.
Because of the camera.
Because of the camera, sir. Yes.
So thank you for inviting me and having me here. It's a delight for me to be here, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart that you count my inaugural award will be debated. The usual thing is that once you present your inaugural, whatever you say there,
We're sorry, sir.
during the inaugural, it's fine, nobody questions. And I'm so happy that my own question is being reviewed. That means we have the feedback, which is very, very important for us. I want to thank my brother and colleague, Dr. Ogen and Mayowa. Mayowa initially brought out this idea that to be a special panel dedicated to this inaugural, that is not something that just will aside. I didn't take him serious, and I think he sent it to me severally in my own characteristics manner. Briefly, later, Professor Ogen came in. I have to take it very serious because there are so many things where our past. He also is a first-class revisionist historian who has suffered persecution, both physical and even academic persecution. Today, we thank so if I will speak the same language. So that's why I'm here. I'm still suffering from jet lag, so if I'm not coherent, came back last night and I said I'm on here the second. Considering the age by we are any country for being very good. That summary was far when we captured my I knew that my novel will generate a lot of controversy, and I know that some people will laugh at me and some people will not be so funny. They can't do more than what they have been doing or have been provided. Professor Kalala was the first person that wrote a brilliant article on that inaugural, which is titled and published. I was thinking it's going to be part of discussion that we have here, which was an endorsement of the methodology of the new framework that we think history should. It's not about originality. It's not about creativity. It's not about, there's this adage that I normally use that the only pathway for progress in any discipline or in anything that you do in life, the complete breakaway from the ways of the founding fathers. Unless you are a rebel, you cannot develop because your thinking has been zeroed and narrowed down inside one point, inside one. And it is only when you can break through. And that's why today we are using cell phone. We're not using that that we have been using before. You must just question existing wisdom. That is correct. What are the new methodologies that you can have? There's a publication that will be coming out in July. I just signed it from doing the public at Oxford University Press. It is a Q1 journal, and the first thing it is the oldest and the most reputed journal in digital humanities, and that's one other area that Professor Olukoya does. It's not about Yoruba, the moral truth, and how you can divide it and make sure that you bring out history and bring out so many things. And it was affected. That journal is highly rated when it comes to computer appreciation and in history. That is being published by a leading journal of computer digitalization of all university. That's what you can get from creativity. That's why I decided throughout my career when I was doing my PhD. I was not in a hurry to get a PhD, you know. And our younger colleagues, it's a special appeal. You just have to think outside it. Don't be in a hurry. I'm extremely slow. Don't feel in a hurry to do it. Whatever you want to do, take your time, be diligent, make sure it is original. And not be saying what other people have been saying. That's not scholarship. It has to be original in terms of methodology. Your intervention can come by way of the methodology that you are using. It can come from simply because people have not done anything there. It is novel. We are now looking at it. It will be at the level of theorization. You know, so, and sometimes you have a perfect job if I to combine with the innovation when it comes to methodology, innovation when it comes to theorization, and innovation when it comes to the area we are focusing on. That is the original. People can just push for that. So the question that he raised, he wants me to find out where the dual group came from. Just told you that the dual group met people in the region. So you continue your research. So that is another PhD topic for a very smart scholar. I want to find out. You know, because BD is claiming that, okay, cognitive praise from BD for the calendar story that they asked. And I'm sorry, Professor Ade, I take out. Even the paper said it's a settled issue. Nobody should touch it again. Oh, he is claiming that what you do one was a positive praise from relation. Then definitely that is one for all. That means it's not settled. So we have to find out where did you do what come from. We can do it. Look at what happened recently. Simply because you are suppressing the people, you don't want anybody to know that there were free indigenous people at Ilefe. Suddenly, the monarchy came out and said that the local only part are Igbo people, and the Igbo took it on, and now they are saying that all of us are people. That's what you get. When you try to suppress the history, now everybody is embarrassed. You know, basically, you don't want to tell us that the people that left this place are somewhere in one corner there. They are still existing. They are there. That's oh, they don't have me. Igbo people that migrated. If you prefer to claim descent from the Igbo, rather than the Yoruba that you are speaking their language, the only thing that tradition, if you bring it out, anybody who is well versed in the Nigerian language, you know everything that's in there. And that is ancient language that you have in Yoruba, and that's what we are now speaking. So if some other people came and they became acculturated from other people, it took the Yoruba group more than 10 years to learn this Yoruba language. They were not speaking Yoruba. They were not speaking Yoruba. It's fine. And that you find that everywhere. Go to Britain, go to Germany, it is people that conquerors write history. That is why it is the Sultan that is writing the history that family. It is the author of the that is writing, it is the order of history. So there's nothing wrong if you have a country and family, but that does not preclude the fact that the indigenous people are also entitled to know their origin. They are not saying they want to displace you. They are not saying, okay, we want to come and become the new monarch in town. So once again, let me not give you another letter. I decided to give my inaugural lecture 12 years after I became a professor, simply because I wanted this thing. I don't want an inaugural that you deliver and it will be lying on the shelf and know it's what is what. I wanted an inaugural that will continue, you know, to invoke discussions, impact that will hold it. That was why it took me 12 years after becoming a professor to deliver mine. And it's been taken with my problem to you. I'm just coming back from that. It was a big debate last week. So thank you very much. Thank you for the comment. And I pray that the unity will also be very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also again for sharing with us your brilliant thoughts, most especially the underlying drive. There's nothing as good as seeing yourself being appreciated by your colleagues. Professor Falola told me one story when I started my career. So you are going to meet with 3 people. The teachers, who, whatever you do, you never admit that you are good. Your classmates, who out of jealousy, should we call you and yeah, meet them your students who knows the difference and will never forget. Our path cross purely on academics. This is the second time that meeting in person. Wow, I've been friends for years.
Yes.
Yeah. Why? Because of revisionism. We attempt to revise and look at it. And I'm glad that you mentioned Professor Adeajan. As at the time the Oba of Benin came out with that story, I was Professor Adeajan's research assistant. So I did the dirty work of collecting materials that I took to the radio station in New York, this issue. But thank you, Professor Ogen. It's not said. No, it's not. The 14 autochthonous group in Ife, they are there. Then, if you pick up, say, linguistic evidence, then you begin to see a whole number of things. I've used biology, I've used agriculture to trace history of Yoruba people. And I can guarantee you, if we continue in this way, not that you are going to turn out one fine book, definitive, no, but you'll be known and remembered for that effort. Thank you, sir. So, our second presenter will be talking to us on rethinking African studies in a globalized world, decolonizing methodologies, and new approach to Africanism. So, it is my honor to invite Dr. Taiwo Adedeji, who is coming directly from, guess what? Federal College of Fisheries and Marine Technology. Don't ask me what is there to do. And I'll continue to call him doctor. Claim it. No, he was trying to correct me, as if I made a mistake.
We have to know distinguished professors, doctors, distinguished colleagues. Thank you for this great opportunity to present this conference. Very grateful. I thank Dr. B for a well-done job, the professor for giving us the opportunity to release for research on something. Like when I was in Ife, I was supposed to join that for just the year in my country. So not well known, not any more course. So the first is the end of not been since 2006, the same first time today. So thank you, Prof. Welcome, sir. So I'm talking on rethinking African studies in a globalized world. You know, let's say methodologies in new direction. By introduction, African studies emerged during the colonial era, rooted in imperial classification that often distorted African realities. Despite decades of post-colonial critique, many methodological and epistemic structure remained embedded in the colonial logic. This paper argued for the fundamental shifts. One that recenter African works, indigenous knowledge system, and actually grounded methodologies not only to critique the past, but to imagine a scholarly future. The field of African studies was born in tandem with empire. European anthropologists and sociologists often portray African society as primitive, justified colonial domination. These knowledge systems were not innocent, they were tools of control. African voices were either ignored or distorted. The colonization of African story is just not a symbolic question, but a story necessity. The key research questions. First, how do colonial logic persist in today's African scholarship? Second, what does it mean to decolonize not just content, but method? Thirdly, how can we validate African epistemologies in global academia? And fourthly, how should African studies respond to the pressure, possibilities of globalization? Colonial conditions. These discipline rules are steps in hierarchy. Think of Evans Fisher, whose work was used to stabilize colonial governance, or Philip Cotton, the exploration of how Africa was imaged for Western consumption. These foundations still influence the voices ahead in which method is seen as legitimate. Post-colonial thought, in the mid-20th century, thinkers like Franz Fanon, Chinua Achebe, and Ibu Dua so launched the cultural and intellectual revolution. Fanon exposed colonialism, psychological violence, Achebe reclaimed narrative authority. So we argue that language itself will either oppress or liberate depending on who reads it. Their work laid the foundation of the post-colonial paradigm that continue to inspire today. Contemporary debates, popular revisionists. Yet, even popular critique is not enough. Scholars like Achille Mbembe challenge us to rethink not just what we study, but how we teach and institutionalize African knowledge. Dr. Nolu invite us to imagine the colonial option, epistemologies, not merely resisting the West, but rooted in other cosmologies. And Olukoya was what the short Western gender framework with Yoruba ontologies of identity. Just like the references made to the Yoruba legend to things. Professor Ogen, in his inaugural lecture, reconstructing the silence past, echo of revisionism, counter-hegemonic history. Ogen contained both empirical and theoretical that all history is revisionist. He has said that revisionism arises from extensive historical contemplation and a profound cognitive process, characterizing revisionists, scholars as dominating figures and beacon for knowledge. Methodology. My approach uses interpretative and historical, guided by critical discourse analysis. I review canonical texts and recent studies, comprising those that reinforce Eurocentric frameworks with those that colonize them. This allows me to trace not only thematic continuities, but methodological shifts toward participatory community-rooted scholarship. African epistemologies. Decolonization is not subtraction, but it is a reconstruction. Kwasi in a sword emphasize cultural particularity in philosophy. While we mention that gender categories are not universal, but culturally encoded. Indigenous knowledge rooted in morality, spirituality, and relationality is not less rigorous, but it is simply measured by a different epistemic capacity.
Professor Ogen also introduced a new innovative idea to African historiography, where he cautioned that our dependence on historical record will lead to a skilled historical reconstruction of African past. He also argued a shift away from Eurocentric perspective of African history and decolonization of African historiography. He raises concern about the way in which Northern region set the research agenda methodologies of African history. The organization challenge. African study is being pulled in multiple directions. Interdisciplinary and digital tools offer exciting opportunities. Globalization also raises new forms of hegemony, especially when research is driven by global founders, English dominant publishing, or neoliberal metrics. To resist this, African study must remain rooted in local realities while dialoguing globally. Pathway forward. First, you have to embrace local language as vehicle of knowledge. Secondly, you should treat African community not as subjects, but as co-creator of knowledge. Thirdly, to develop African-led digital archive that prioritize oral history, non-Western methodologies. These strategies are not mere technique, they are political act of intellectual self-determination. Conclusion. African study began as a project of domination. Today, it must become a project of migration and imagination. Decolonization is not just about rejecting colonial ideas. It is about building new ways of knowing, teaching, and learning, with Africa at the center. To do this, we need both epistemic unity and intellectual courage. The biography I shared from Evans Richard, 1940, Pano, where to, what's up, again. There are a lot of others, like work of Professor Tony Falola, when he acknowledged the work of Professor Ogen. He said, that's why he found that the work was in 2 hours longer lecture. He does not know when he finished reading the paper because it was very interesting. So we actually give kudos to the work of Revisionism. That means the history is an African study, African study is a continuous history. So thank you for listening. And let's continue this work, not just in theory, but in practice.
Thank you very much. Well, we have a third presenter who was as a result of family emergency had to leave. That's Mr. Danladi, who came all the way from Bayero, but unfortunately had to leave because family emergency. Our prayers are him. We hope that he will get back to us short, because we sent him a text message to see whether join us first. Leaders as it may, we have yet another paper, the centric approach to the study of Yoruba society, the revisionist history of Ogun, and Mr. Adebayo appeals all the way from the rest of. You can connect, couldn't connect. That's sad, because there is this connection between these 3 papers. That's why I call them in that order. You have on one hand somebody challenging the history of origin of Yoruba. Now, if you are familiar with Yoruba history, you will order they do well very well. So from that song, itself is claiming, talking about revisiting, claiming to be number 1 And that paper would have been very, very, very timely for this question. Take that as paid. If you have any question for, yeah, I know I'm expecting that. If you have any question for any of the two presenters, yes, I will start lady first.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
and do you understand? Oh my God.
Introduce yourself. Ask a question. There is no like longest.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Honorable professors. My name is Teosi from Bengalian University of the Negev. I have a question for the second presenter. In his presentation, he stated that we should encourage teaching of our courses in local languages. And I would just like to know, in a country like Nigeria that is like this diverse with different languages and different cultures, how do you suggest we go about doing this? Like, if we encourage teaching, like you in the Southwest, we encourage teaching in Yoruba, and we know how mixed, for instance, in Lagos, there are Hausa people here, there are Igbo people here, and then we teach courses in Yoruba. Won't that lead to segregation, and won't that even encourage more disunity? Thank you.
Then batches. So yes, thank you, sir. Let me appreciate my work for that. Mr. Ogen for the wonderful work you've done, because I'm seeing kind of approach. I'm from, my name is Peter Olukoya, doctoral student from the University of Technology. So I'm seeing a connection between what we did and what we also do in social science. But that way, somebody has said something that was not in the seats, and it's to make sure that we have the value accuracy. But my concern is, in doing that, how do we make sure that we don't distort facts, establish facts? Are there parameters, are there indicators that we must use? Are there methods that we must use to make sure that we establish and we don't derail from the original reality? Thank you, sir. The third question.
Thank you. I'll start from the second presenter. Yeah,
Introduce yourself.
Felix Adjela, University of Lagos. I want to ask about how can we possibly synchronize the African history and African knowledge system when we often still romanticize with Eurocentric or foreign methodologies, with theories which have nothing to do with the existential reality in Africa. You see scholars who are experts in African history, but with all their rights, the only do is to still reenact, colonial hierarchies. It's logical that so no, you mentioned Atlas David, faster now. And for me, decolonization as described by Fanon and resist Africa such as David, it's not about self-ownership. But in a situation where African continues to deploy foreign theories and concepts that doesn't have any bearing with regional reality, how can we decolonize epistemological aspect? Then the question for the second presenter, I don't know whether Professor Ogen will help you to understand. It's a question I've asked in one of my own paper myself, which I've not been able to find a possible answer. What is at stake in the mobilization of myths in Yoruba land, and how does myth matter in the reconstruction myths, the reconstruction of Yoruba history? And why do people cling to certain myths, rather than the others, basically? And that has to be the major. Is it for political reasons? Is it for security? And all of this. Then the second question is that to what extent can your assertion that the college, are purely Yoruba, that's for some considering the linguistic, cultural, rituals, and other social similarities between the Canada and the language, they are much more related more with the name when you look at it linguistically, socially, ritual, and all this stuff than with
Right. One moment. Let's take this first batch. Then we give opportunity to our attendees who are online who have sent us a couple of questions. So, first we'll give the 3 presenters now.
The first question, how to teach of history, with language. It's not about teaching in Yoruba, but it's just it's an avenue to let everyone know where they came from. Through oral source, like all these sacred places, the origin of the phone. If you are writing the paper, you can also go to them, put the application. If it's an answer, you can write, you put the application. So anybody reading it, you know the origin, the traces, where who is coming from. So it is all about embracing the oral source through the linguistic source, like maybe the other people put that. It's not that you should embrace them in English, but you should embrace them through the traditional way. Why putting the joint interpreting? Like when the French is writing a paper now, the French person, sometimes they write in their language, they interpret it. So by that, by this way, you're able to carry everybody along. So that is new. And secondly, we are in the age of technology now. Just like people are talking about AI, we are of the opinion that as South Africa can also establish our own AI, which is African domesticated by putting our own record. It should not be for only Eurocentric or European ideology. So it can be particular for Africa, whereby all the information is centered Africa. When you quote the local information, good local information can also be that is the like all these European powers, the colonial masters, when they write about Africans, they write from their own perspective for economic and exploitative purpose, for imperialism. So for now that we are writing, we want to write originality, so we can employ local way to do that.
Right. Okay. I don't think I should answer because not all it's exactly. Then we have to present that. But let me just give a little.
Fine, Gary, fine.
If it is going to aside. Well, the question of what's the place of meat in global language around points. Anyway, for my little understanding of meat in historical Professor Ogen said, reconstructing a silenced past. There's a difference between a past that is silenced as a result of hegemonic conflict. But there's also a silent past. That is the past that has not really been so. And in the course of doing that, you know about people deploying it to trace it as you have in the Olukoya Olukoya is coming from Evo and Batala Batukim at your point. These are mythical narrations. So that's the least what I can say about that, Prof. So then you say what assertion can we say? In what can I say Benin and Gale are linguistically related? Now, if you go to Benin language, some of the Benin languages, we see Usegu, we see who instead of high. Yet in a Kale too, you have a whole lot of all these things starting their language. So let's see.
Your mom is Kale.
Thank you very much.
Thank God you can ask more questions at home. Prof.
Yes, from where you have it? So thank you. My brief intervention, let me start from my friend here. You can see that when you are making your statement, you are having it original, established. Once you come with that mentality, you can't challenge everything. You can't challenge anything. And that is the way society is. Society wants to really roll you into a system of thinking. You know, they just mentioned it that Professor Wala remarked that my own inaugural was 2 hours instead of 1 hour. It was deliberate. Because you have this is system, it has to be one after yourself. But what I handled in life, because a revisionist historian is a very stubborn person. You are not part of the crowd. I was given a letter because normally you should deliver your memoir within the first or 2 years after the I was written officially. I refused, I did but that is the stubbornness in anybody's research. The first person that first discovered that the art is round, not flat. You know, that is why revisionism is either you get murdered, you get crazy, and then at the end of the day, they will now come to realize that what you are saying is actually the truth, and all of us will have been facing just one direction. So it is that person, found out you but it's very apart. That is a very apparent unbeliever. Was the most intelligent person. To my dear already, so you ask questions, you query existing with them. So there's nothing if you want to query what has been existing, then you go deep, you study what is in operation, that established position. Then once you're able to fault it, you come up with your own thesis. So that's what I'm saying. There's nothing if you want to go that line, because it is only that line where you can have original thinking. It is only that line that will show that you are different, that you are unique. And you begin to do things that will start amazing people, and then they come with myths and stories. Because they just cannot understand, you know, how you are doing it. But it is the ability to think differently. Then for my Italian brother, I wrote my PhD thesis here. That thesis is in your library, is in the main library. I'm very sure that you have not bothered with it. Because if you read it, you discover that the work is highly empirical. There's no claim, any line, there's nothing that I will say that I will not be able to. And I did not just use anthropological method, historical method, lexical statistics, chronology, statistics, even time of separation, one group from the other. I was able to bring in so many, I went into so many disciplines. Our own disciplines that go to the archive. Whatever you get in the archive, that is the truth. And you discover that people that put this together, some of them just pass through those coastal areas. They didn't even stay for 2 days. And then they understand all your culture, speak, they don't live among the people. I lived among them. So there's not way that an ethnographer and anthropology will not say something that is very different. So the linguistic peculiarity that I am talking about, I didn't know where we got it, because it is the other way around here. Because Benin itself is claiming that Benin princes were trained at the palace of the Olugo, and that all their chieftains are borrowed from Ogo. That's why they are denying it. You know, that is Basibi Eweka, the former secretary of the Benin Traditional Council, and the grandson of Oba Eweka, wrote a book. Just go and read that book. The evolution of Benin chieftains. He traced all those, the songs, the language that they speak. If you go to Benin, you say that the language they speak in the palace, they tell you it's Yoruba language. That is like a dialect. When they say Oba wa tope is Oba wa tope, that is just go and do. So what you need is just to move out. You are a Lagos man. You know, a historian has to be on the field for you to say anything that it's not about archiving. The archive will be there to support what you're doing, but you have to be a field person. You know, so it's not mythical at all. It's not about myth. We are saying you bring in totemism, you bring in grace poetry, you bring in oral literature, culture. You will now combine all this thing with what you have in the books, with what you have in the archive. You know, where they tally, you begin to draw tentative conclusions. Where they don't tally, you bring it out. And you now come out with your own things. Because it's all the process of analysis and reinterpretation. I think I've answered all the questions.
Yeah. Permit me to add just snippets here and there. And I'll start with yours. It's quite unfortunate that 2 weeks ago, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, Ngugi Atilgo died. He started this idea of decolonizing the mind. And after writing for a very long time in English language, 1986, he stopped writing in English. I started writing in Swahili and in Kikuyu. And his argument is that English language, French, Spanish, Portuguese, they are not the language of our subconsciousness. So how many of us have dreams in English? And I remember Julius Nyerere, Tanzania, started the Ujamaa educational policy. It was the first in Africa to start teaching students at the elementary level in local language. I also remember that when Professor Bolanle Awe was Commissioner for Education in Oyo State during Bola Ige's period, there was an attempt also to introduce, to adopt Yoruba language as language of education at the elementary level. Now, Toyosi, you might be wondering, okay, how do we translate photosynthesis, right, into Yoruba? The problem we are having is that there has been a disconnect. So we lost many of our words. So if there had not been any disconnect, you can imagine the kind of growth. Language is like us, it grows. For instance, a couple of months ago, Professor Falola, I don't know what possessed him that day, wrote something on Japa. And today, if you go around Europe and say, Mufe Japa, chances are that 90% of people they already knew what you are saying. So language grows as society grows. So if we start today, I can guarantee you, in another 50 years, we would have created words that will capture the sense, the true meaning. Look at Yoruba names. Yoruba names is either aspirational or descriptive. Ademowo is not Ademowo. If you look at any Yoruba name, you can easily unbundle it to know what you are looking for. So, as far as decolonizing education is concerned, especially methodology, it is very, very important. So, beginning of last month, I submitted a 900-page manuscript to James Corey on decolonization. I looked at the work of Toyin Falola. Almost everybody that was cited, and also, I don't know if you know about him, said, yeah, side. All these things are not new because people started talking about them a long time ago. We are just playing catch up. But my joy is this: we have started, and nothing is going to stop us. It is part of decolonization to revisit. So when we talk about decolonization, what are we actually talking about? What are we actually talking about? I'm a restless person and I decolonize almost everything on my way. I have a 978-page document. I wrote the proposal to SAGE. I want them to publish. I want to have something to SAGE. And it's on terrorism. And I titled it Decolonizing Terrorism and Counter-Terrorism. And what's the argument? What am I calling attention to? If you pick any book on terrorism today, you are going to see 9/11, Muslims, Middle East, and everything that has to do with the experiences of Thabo Mbeki, Walter Sisulu, Mandela, and also if you move to North Africa, the Battle of Ogen, what was done in Morocco, what was done in Libya, none of these people will address this as terrorism. We talk about Adolf Hitler earlier on. Sorry, I can be passionate with this.
That is the revisionist story.
I can be passionate with this. Look at it this way. Adolf Hitler killed 6 million Jews and Europeans. How many people?
He's not a terrorist.
He's also a terrorist. How many people did King Leopold II kill in Congo? 10 million. And these are the people who call themselves Christian. That's why we never be a Christian. No, it's religion of killers. And these people gallivants, they call it civilizing mission. Which civilization are we talking about? So I approach terrorism from that perspective. That it is the state that keeps defining terrorism. We have to decolonize that. Because activities of, say, Abacha, we were both alive, remember? Bomb here and there, Felicity Blue Pill, Kudiabiola Pill. That is terrorism. So why is it that the state will now define terrorism for me? United States, back in the days when we started terrorism studies, define terrorism as anything that is against the interest of the United States on the continent or wherever. And I pose this question now. So, okay, what about, let's flip it. Can Nigeria define terrorism as anything that affects the interests of Nigeria on the continent and elsewhere? Will it still be terrorism? And nobody kept silent. So
I,
we can
I hope that you are aware that you're already
I know.
on the radar of this.
Oh, I know.
Oh.
I've been stopped, thorough searches here and there. There was a time, it's banned, you cannot come to the United States. The thing is,
That is silencing.
do what you need to do and do it vigorously. They call it global terrorism, but the examples, the theories, everything has to do with what happens in the global north. In other words, whatever happens in the global south, nobody cares. 3,000 people died 9/11. How many people have been killed by Boko Haram? And why is it that nobody talked about that? And almost every day we talk Amchani just because some 36 people were killed in France. Then how many people have been killed by Boko Haram? Nobody talks about it. So what then makes it global terrorism when the examples are so narrow? So that's what we call decolonization. Decolonize the knowledge system, decolonize the methodology. Sir, let me buttress what is pointed out, and that will answer your question of myths. 2016, I came to Nigeria to bury my father, who we met at the conference in Eden. And the day I got to my hometown, USC, after the normal burial, we cried, and we later settled down to very chill bottle of Heineken and drink, and we were enjoying ourselves. I was told that the king wanted to see. He was my younger brother's classmate when we were in NC. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just casual. I went there, probably so I looked at. But before getting to the king, the women, some of them older than, and they started singing praise songs by my family, my father's father, this and this, their exploits. And I wanted to say, no. They all turned that I must not prostrate. I must not. You are older than me, say no, I'm a. That's it. So I came back from that experience. And coincidentally, Professor Falola just sent a call for people out. They said, okay, me the reconstruction. And in that, I brought in Oriki, Ekun Yawo. And what I did was to look around Africa. Given my connection with South Africa, I discovered that among the Zulu, among the Tosa, they have Ekun Yawo. So I collected from there, then superimposed models on it to see what are the common strands. Where are the connections? So myths, most of archaeological sites that we know today, our first inroad to knowing that there are some things underneath the soil are true myths. They were like compass, call it GPS. They guide historians, archaeologists to know where we are going. And your question is, why do we still hold on tightly to it? It gives us a sense of identity. It gives us a sense of identity. And that's why I'm not descendant of Adam. There is no Adam from the rest. No. Look at it closely. If there are 13 autochthonous groups in Ile-Ife before Oduduwa came, how come Oduduwa is described as the father of Yorubas? You find it on page 1 of my master's dissertation in Yoruba. I challenged it. And Professor Ogutomisi was humble enough to say, oh, it is the story of two stories. One, the earliest inhabitant, the second one by the invaders or migrants. But that's still not answering the question. If you have a migrant, Oduduwa is a migrant. How come we are Yoruba or Oduduwa? I cannot be the son of a migrant. Is that you are telling me that Oduduwa is Yoruba? And the 13 group, then the question becomes, who are they? If they are not Yorubas. If Oduduwa is the father of Yorubas, then Yorubas are not indigenous to Ile-Ife. Then we've had all kinds of Ile-Ife in history. Talking about archaeological evidence, we have pieces that are pointing somewhere else. And that takes me back to the Kale that you are talking about, linguistic evidence. Where is the center of Yoruba land? As people began to fan out, do not forget there's another center here. They are fanning out. As they come in contact, you see loan words, cultural borrowings of all kinds. And if you are in this area where you have confluence of culture, then the question becomes, who is who? Who is who? It's like a pot of toyosi, are you there? A bowl of salad, mayonnaise, carrots, tomatoes, you find everything. But if you pick them one out of it and clean the whatever toyosi has added to it tastes tomato. So when we talk about meat, it's important. When we talk about decolonization, it's important. When we talk about decolonizing methodology, that's why I love your paper. Sir, develop it further. Develop it further. Thank you. Any other question? We have 3 panelists.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, there is this conversation that I've been going with mind for years now about how people interpret history, like which attack palace history and history of people. Let me start the case study of Bori. And Pastor Williams talked about the history of Bori people that the palace history is linked to the why the people of the Yorubas, now we're talking about Revisionism now. In order to bring accurate history, you have to take a good account about history of Bori, or other places I also talk about palace history, the basic history of people. What should is going on towards that side?
Prof, over to you.
There was this coming. I'm lost.
Okay, yeah, and I started the example of Bori. Pastor Diabo says something that in the palace history of Bori, that the palace system has a relationship with the why the people that they managed for million, so the people that like there's some managed like so yeah, in that revision system now. So that's for you want to do that accurate history in history of how should one approach it? Is that to go with fanatically or history of people all to bring go together?
No, the thing is, if I understand you very well, that means you already have your mindset. That is not research. Because if you are thinking that, okay, I want to go with you are supporting people, that is politics. A historian does not play politics. You are dealing with that. What you need to find out is study what is the palace history, what is it saying? Is it correct? Is there a way to query it? The history of the masses of this, what is it saying? Is there a difference? Unless you know the truth, then that is when you can now approach whether we want to support one or support the other. It has to be based on facts and what you are. Yes. So not that you are not. It's not about voting for anybody. That is my own understanding. And it is very clear if you use all those methodology. What I can tell you for a fact, because I'm very familiar with that area, that the security is purely Yoruba. The conquest by the Oba, the imposition of people, what happened that the monarchy tilts towards Benin. So you have one history that is supercentric, another one that is Edo-centric. So
let me summarize in one simple sentence. Thank you. A history is as good as the evidence.
Yes.
It's the evidence.
With the evidence.
It's the evidence. Without evidence, we are not historians. We are like detectives. We only rely on evidence. It's wherever our evidence pointed our reflection.
And then I remember there's something I want to tell to yourself regarding the use of local language. As an economic historian, we were taught, and the World Bank course which I took, and we discovered that they were trying to build the history of the poverty and wealth of nations. And we now discover that one of our projects that we did, we now discover that there's not a single country anywhere in the world that has ever developed with the adoption of foreign language.
Thank you.
All of them. Malaysia, India, only those that have adopted their indigenous language. So we cannot take it away. Only. So that one is also empirical. Yeah.
But can I ask?
Please go ahead.
But like,
That's what, don't be sorry.
I'm trying to like I feel like you don't not like you don't understand, but like you don't get where I'm coming from. In a country like Nigeria now, we are not monolithic. Oh, sorry, we don't have like one language. We don't speak one language. We are very diverse and all that. The way you are saying, I think as a Yoruba person, we are like the lucky group in Nigeria right now. Because we have like a unified Yoruba from, if you are from Ogun State or you're from Ondo State.
Don't worry, in India, they are using more than 14. Depending on your region.
I was about
You know, it's
But how
more than 14.
but then their own diversity or division is not that obvious because they have like a unifying language or religion in a kind of way. We are divided by a lot of things in this country. Now, if you now want to like make it like in Southwest, you are using Yoruba to teach, won't that encourage division?
That's a very good question. Look at it from another angle. What if I tell you that the history of all groups in Nigeria is just about merger?
Okay.
Mergers. And I'll give you 3 examples that you are familiar with. Yoruba land. Yoruba land. Or your Yoruba is the dominant Yoruba that we speak today. No thanks to Christian missionaries. Because how can you pick the small group of your and impose it over the rest? Unfortunately, people who collaborated with them came from this faculty. Professor Olukoya was.
Yes.
Yeah. So, if you now look at the bigger Yoruba group, we have various dialects, but we are still mutually intelligible. If an Akoko is talking, well, my first time in Accra, 1983, my sister's neighbor asked me to pick it. I've never heard anything like that. And I left. When my sister came, they reported, and you are disobedient. I said, no, he asked me to bring Okuta. And I don't know what that is. I said, no, Otita. What is that? They are Oti. Never heard that in my life. Here's the. If you look at the history of the Yoruba people, different people we call Yoruba today, we have unique characteristics, part of which is dialect of the same language. Now, at some point, we came together and began to bear that pan Yoruba name, identity tag. The same thing is what you find in Hausa land.
Yeah.
Hausa Bokoi, Hausa whatever. And they made. Go to the Igbo, a rich tradition, they made. So when non-historians are saying that the mistake of 1914, there was no mistake in 1914. They only fast-tracked the processes our ancestors started. They fast-tracked it. And they brought us together. If they had allowed us to organically come together, there won't be all this problem. And that's why I said there was a gap. And that gap is what we are trying to bridge. And if you don't do something consciously about it, Prof said it well. If you find any nation on earth today that adopted another man's thinking, thoughts, language, and is successful, then we will rewrite all history books. Italy, the jackboot of Europe, as we call them in the field of history. 7 different nations merged into one. The Germanic people, Otto von Bismarck, merged them together to become what we call the nation of Germany. So if we are not unique in any sense, the only trouble that I see here, and it's open to debate, is that we allow our differences to predominate in anything we are doing. We are not the only nation that is now configured.
Can I?
Oh, of course.
Yes, based on she was talking about causing division or something.
Yeah.
There has already been a division, and it has to start from somewhere. If every language, the Igbos in their own area decide to make it an official language, the Yorubas make it an. With time, people will live with that. The division you are talking about, the Nigerians have already seen themselves as being divided already. So now using language as an excuse for that, I don't think that will work. So if we are trying to project this, we cannot see any kind of division in that. That is, I'm talking about historians now. We cannot put our mind that, oh, if we do this thing, there's going to be a division. But by going ahead with it, I'm telling you that it will definitely work. He started one time when he talked about the Japa thing that Professor Falola wrote about. It's trending. Even when you get to the Igbo land, they know about Japa. Everybody now, even the Igbo person will say Japa. So it's something that it has to start from somewhere. Whether it's going to cause division or not. I have a politician that I know that is one way. Immediately, people will go with it. In fact, Nigerians will easily mix up and how would I like to say now? They will cope. They will cope with it. So division we cannot be using division taking it as a responsibility for not doing what we are supposed to do. Thank you, sir.
Yes, be online.
Online, please.
The person left.
Oh, my Lord. What's the question?
The person left. He didn't drop the question. He just left. He wanted to ask a question when he left.
We have another question.
That's my name is right. Why is just a drop of the cross walk? Unfortunately, I haven't seen this. Neither have I seen it. But I am quite aware of how sophisticated these works can be. As a master student here, my own learning this. There are three articles that are very engaged of, usually as a tradition, we form, you are given departmental journal, Lagos historical. There were three articles, two by him and one by another scholar based in the US. The argument, I mean, the sort of engagement and the presentation that were in those articles being shape our world level. And it was about Italian and the use of the fund. I would like to thank him for this one. They helped so many of us to shape and way to write. Okay, I think those are the best thing as rest. Let's listen to that. So that analyze online virtual participants.
Hello, ma, you can talk no more. Can you hear us, ma? Can you please unmute yourself?
Okay. Good afternoon, my prof, and the people at the discussion. I'm Dr. Ajibefu. Unfortunately, I came late, but the one that I met you when you are discussing about the Historia doesn't stay with archive, but always be at the feed in order to get a recent research to compare with what they have at the archive. I'm very happy to join you, sir, because I'm not a historian, but the information I got when you were discussing was so amazing about the history of Oodua and some other things. So I just want to ask a question that how can we clarify the issue of Olugbo and Ile-Ife history? Because at times I used to confuse which one is the first. That is my question, sir.
So we just send Madam a copy of my inaugural lecture.
Madam, can you send us your email?
I've already, yes, I can do it, but I put it when I wanted to log in.
Please, we won't see it from here. It's the administrator that will see that.
You can write it in the comments.
Just
ma.
write it in the comment, and we are going to give UFOC a copy of Prof's inaugural lecture, where he provided the most current, the most authentic answers to questions you pose.
Okay, sir, I will do that.
Thank you.
I will do that, yes, sir.
Questions, queries? Okay, Prof,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Okay, I thought I've been given more than
Your son said the floor is
maybe
yours.
maybe it's going to be a note of gratitude and appreciation to first people behind NSC. I have to start with my friend, Saeed Adeola. I doubt if there's any of us that is doing what they have taken to in terms of mentor, in terms of bringing everybody here, year in, year out. I want to say and please that we all have to support it. It's amazing. I simply cannot believe it. So my first appreciation to go to him. I remember that when we were sounded him at his father was insisting that, are you sure Ogen is going to be around? Because I know it's not like he could be around. I kept on assuring that I'll be around. So I want to appreciate that Professor hearing from. And then next is the chairman of this panel, coming all the way from the US. I remember that paid for the accommodation of some of our students. So I want to thank you for he's here simply because he's a thoroughbred scholar and he believes so much about them. He doesn't touch anything substandard. Consider he's doing it and will do it with so much passion. The only difference between us is that while I'm a bit coward, he's very brave. Very, very brave. Confront the principalities while I tend to be a little bit scared. There's this thing that I said, Obama will also talk the Jesus Christ of the day at the cross. And that I don't want to be nailed to the cross. So I to for Mayowa, I don't know. I met Mayowa at between 2004 and 456. Apparently, the best, if not in the faculty, that's in the departments. And they have been doing this for a very long time. Bring his mates together to be the one uncovering stories, making sure that everybody, first we even read it once, to have assisted them so we can get on assignment. Why is this? So they've been doing this kind of, so I thank you so much. You were not that about all them. I want to, he's not here, but I want to appreciate Professor going for now. It's very important because he was the first person that got interested in this inaugural. I played everything and wrote a review, which he also published. So that attracted people in Palola, and we're saying this about the quality of the books and endorsements. So he's aware that we're also here, but he's airborne now, so we can't do that. Otherwise, I'm very sure that we will be able to contribute to start. And for those of you that are fine time, we are meeting after I thought we briefly, I just for 1 year. I can't even remember the face, but I'm sure part of the reason why he applied to present this very insightful paper that I presented to you that saw my name, that this thing will be in honor of some I want to appreciate everybody. To tell you that we will continue. That's right. Whatever way that we try to see that we get people that we not is we're starting a new school. We want you to be original, extremely that's what people, young people of nowadays, that's what they want. I don't know, I don't bother see. They just cannot be bothered with what we are. Can we still revoke diligence? But after remember during as time we were here as graduate students. Professor Antonio Akiwa is today, but he named after my inaugural, he just called me, tell mommy, say you are now the father of modern Yoruba revisionist history. That was what he said. But for me to get that accolade from Professor Akiwa, I remember the first time he entered our class, all the theories and concepts of history being anchored by Professor. Everybody was falling for it, and they had one question in class. A lot of people I couldn't get. Prof said I should go and be auditing classes with 400 level students. Can you imagine? Masters. That my philosophy of history class, you have to, so that because I really get that one. I mean, no, that would be very difficult. They're not that student, and probably you have a friend there. Yeah. It's true. You know what I did for Prof? After I used to Ghana, like, I got that his PhD. So I read over and over. His references are his way of thinking and everything. So by the time he gave us the next assignment, 70 something. Who is this person? Go and call him. He said, I want to see him. Well, how would you? How come? Because at that time, the best student in class was probably 50. And then the other lecturer will be begging Baba. They are master students. Let's allow them to. So that I will begin. So tomorrow, don't tell me. So, but you see that diligence there, you see that pace taken at them, to think straight, to original thinking, not just getting the PhD. Most people, the PhD is the master key. That's what we need to open any door, anywhere, and you propose it. Once you miss it, and because you are in the hurry to get it, you just collect the PhD and it's the in one class. But once you do it for a PhD, that is your master key. Anywhere. Just be getting all the tickets will be coming, all the grants will be coming. Once we book a Prof, go and check anybody that is outstanding, go and check the quality of the thing. That is where it starts. Once you don't get it right, they are forget it. Because you are in a hurry to get it, and that's what I'm just. So I want to appreciate all of you, and thank you very much for going on and looking at it.
Yes, thank you very much, by you still delivered.
Yeah.
Where this